Oxford Union, Oxford, England, December 3rd, 1964. Malcolm X stands at the dispatch box, the same podium where Winston Churchill once stood, where world leaders have debated, where history has been made. Tonight, the motion is controversial. Extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. Malcolm is here to defend it. The room is silent. 700 faces staring at him. Waiting, judging. He's been called an extremist his entire life. Tonight, he's going to explain why that's not an insult. It's a badge of honor. This is that debate. Let's set the scene. It's December 1964. Malcolm X is at a crossroads. Just 6 months earlier, he left the Nation of Islam. He's traveled to Mecca. He's seen Muslims of all races praying together. His views are evolving.
To most people, especially white people, Malcolm is still the angriest man in America. The man who said the white man is the devil. The man who preached separation, not integration. And now, he's been invited to Oxford. The Oxford Union is one of the oldest and most prestigious debate societies in the world. Founded in 1823, prime ministers have debated here. Presidents, Nobel laureates. The format is formal, traditional, very British. Each term, the Union holds debates on controversial topics. Students vote on motions. It's intellectual, it's rigorous, it's elite. This term, the motion is, extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. Moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue. It's a quote from Barry Goldwater, the conservative American politician who just lost the presidential election to Lyndon Johnson. The phrase is controversial. It sounds like it's justifying violence, radicalism, chaos. The Union invites speakers to argue for and against the motion. For the opposition, those arguing against extremism, they invite a British politician and a philosophy professor. For the proposition, those defending extremism, they invite Malcolm X. It's a bold choice, provocative. Some students are excited. Some are outraged. Why are we giving a platform to a racist? He's not a racist. He's a civil rights leader. He advocates violence. He advocates self-defense. The debate rages before Malcolm even arrives. But Malcolm accepts the invitation. He sees it as an opportunity, not to preach, but to educate. He arrives in Oxford on December 3rd. Cold, gray, drizzling rain. The Union building is old, stone, Gothic architecture. It feels like stepping back in time. Malcolm is escorted to a waiting room. He's wearing a dark suit, white shirt, thin tie, his signature glasses. A student, a young white man, maybe 20, approaches nervously. Mr. X. I'm the debate secretary. Thank you for coming. Historic. The debate begins. The opposition speaks first. A British politician, middle-aged, well-spoken, argues that extremism is dangerous, that it leads to violence, to chaos, to the breakdown of civil society. We must pursue justice through reason, through law, through democratic processes. Extremism, by its very nature, rejects these principles. It is a threat to everything we hold dear. Polite applause. Next, a philosophy professor. He argues that extremism is philosophically incoherent. How can one defend liberty through extremism? Liberty requires tolerance, moderation, respect for differing views. Extremism is the antithesis of these values. More applause. Then it's Malcolm's turn. He walks to the dispatch box, adjusts the microphone, looks out at the crowd. Silence. He begins. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank the Oxford Union for this invitation. I've been called many things in my life. Radical, extremist, dangerous, and tonight I'm here to tell you that those labels don't offend me because I understand what they really mean. Pause. When you call someone an extremist, what you're really saying is that they refuse to accept the status quo, that they refuse to be moderate in the face of injustice, that they refuse to wait patiently while their rights are denied. The room is listening. So let me ask you this. Was George Washington an extremist when he fought for American independence? Was he supposed to be moderate? To negotiate politely with King George while his people were oppressed? A few students shift in their seats. Was Winston Churchill an extremist when he refused to negotiate with Hitler? When he said, "We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, we shall never surrender"? Was that extremism? Or was that defending liberty? Murmurs in the crowd. The problem is not extremism. The problem is what you're being extreme about. If you're extreme in the defense of liberty, in the pursuit of justice, in the protection of human rights, then extremism is not a vice. It's a virtue. Applause, scattered at first, then growing. Malcolm continues. Let me tell you about moderation. Moderation sounds nice. It sounds reasonable. But moderation in the face of injustice is cowardice. It's complicity. He pauses, lets that sink in. In America right now, black people are being denied the right to vote. We're being beaten by police. We're being murdered by white supremacists. And when we demand justice, immediate justice, not gradual justice, we're told to be patient, to be moderate, to wait. His voice rises slightly, not in anger, in passion. Wait for what? Wait for white people to decide we deserve human rights? Wait for the system to fix itself? How long should we wait? Another 100 years? Another 200? The room is silent, captivated. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is a friend of mine. I respect him deeply. He preaches nonviolence. He preaches patience. And I understand why. But I also understand that nonviolence only works when the oppressor has a conscience. And I'm not convinced that the system oppressing us has a conscience. A few gasps, some nods. So when you ask me to defend extremism in the defense of liberty, I say this. I will be as extreme as necessary to secure the rights that should have been mine from birth. And if that makes me a radical, so be it. Applause. Louder now. Malcolm steps back from the podium. The debate secretary stands. We'll now take questions from the floor. Hands shoot up, dozens of them. A young woman stands. Mr. X, you say extremism is justified in the defense of liberty. But doesn't that justify violence? Even terrorism? Malcolm nods, appreciates the question. That's a fair question. And the answer is no. I'm not advocating violence for the sake of violence. I'm advocating self-defense. There's a difference. He pauses. If someone attacks you, you have the right to defend yourself. That's not extremism. That's survival. But the media, especially the white media, calls it extremism when black people defend themselves. They call it violence when we fight back. But they don't call it violence when the police brutalize us, when the Klan murders us. That's just law and order. The room is silent. So let me be clear. I don't advocate initiating violence, but I will never tell an oppressed people to accept violence without defending themselves. That's not extremism. That's common sense. Another student stands. A young man, British accent. Mr. X, you've said in the past that white people are devils. Do you still believe that? Malcolm smiles. He knew this question was coming. I've said a lot of things, and some of those things I've reconsidered. I recently traveled to Mecca. I prayed alongside Muslims of every race, white, black, Arab, Asian, and I realized that the problem isn't white people. The problem is white supremacy, the system, the ideology. Pause. So no, I don't believe all white people are devils, but I do believe that a system built on the oppression of black people is evil, and anyone who benefits from that system and does nothing to dismantle it is complicit. The room is processing this. It's not what they expected. Another question. Mr. X, what do you say to those who argue that progress takes time, that change must be gradual? Malcolm's expression hardens slightly. I say this. It's easy to preach patience when you're not the one suffering. It's easy to say change takes time when your children aren't being denied an education, when your father wasn't lynched, when you can walk down the street without fear. His voice is steady, controlled, but powerful. The people who tell us to be patient are the same people who benefit from our oppression. They want us to wait because waiting preserves their power. But we're done waiting. We've waited 400 years. That's patient enough. Standing ovation, not from everyone, but from many. The debate continues for another 30 minutes. Malcolm fields question after question. Some hostile, some genuine, some confused, and he answers every single one with clarity, with intelligence, with respect. He quotes Aristotle, he quotes Jefferson, he quotes the Bible and the Quran. He's not ranting, he's teaching. And slowly, the room shifts. The debate ends. The Union president stands. We will now vote on the motion. Extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. Students file out to cast their votes. It takes 15 minutes. Malcolm stands to the side. Students approach him, shake his hand, ask more questions. A young black student, one of only a handful in the room, approaches with tears in his eyes. Mr. X, thank you. I've never heard anyone speak like that. You made me feel seen. Malcolm puts a hand on his shoulder. You are seen, brother. Don't ever forget that. The votes are counted. The president returns. The motion has passed. 187 votes in favor. 131 against. Applause, loud, sustained. Malcolm has won the debate. But more than that, he's won respect. After the event, students line up to talk to him, to thank him, to tell him he changed their minds. A white student, one who voted against the motion, approaches. Mr. X, I came here tonight thinking you were dangerous. I was wrong. You're not dangerous. You're necessary. Malcolm looks at him. I appreciate that. But don't call me necessary. Call yourself responsible. Because change doesn't happen when people like me speak. It happens when people like you listen. The student nods, walks away thinking. The Oxford debate becomes legendary. It's recorded, transcribed, published. Decades later, it's still studied in universities around the world. Students who were in that room go on to become politicians, professors, activists. And many of them cite that night as a turning point in their understanding of justice. of extremism, of what it means to fight for what's right. One student writes years later, "I went to that debate thinking Malcolm X was a radical. I left realizing I was the one who needed to be more radical in my commitment to justice." Another writes, "Malcolm didn't just defend extremism, he redefined it. He made me realize that moderation in the face of injustice is its own form of extremism." The debate also marks a turning point for Malcolm himself. It's one of his last major speeches. 3 months later, on February 21st, 1965, he's assassinated. But the words he spoke at Oxford live on. "Extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice." It's a phrase that's been quoted by activists, by revolutionaries, by anyone who's ever been told to be patient, to be moderate, to wait for justice. Because Malcolm understood something most people don't. Justice delayed is justice denied. So what's the lesson? Malcolm X walked into one of the most prestigious institutions in the world and defended a position that terrified people. And he won. Not because he softened his message, not because he made them comfortable, but because he made them think. Here's what he understood. Being extreme about the right things is not a flaw. It's a responsibility. We live in a world that values moderation, that tells us to be reasonable, to compromise, to meet in the middle. But some things don't deserve moderation. Human rights don't deserve moderation. Justice doesn't deserve moderation. Dignity doesn't deserve moderation. And when you're told to be patient, to wait, to accept incremental change, you have to ask yourself, who benefits from my patience? Because the answer is usually the people who are oppressing you. So let me ask you this. What are you being moderate about right now? What injustice are you tolerating because it's easier than fighting? What compromise are you making that you shouldn't? Because here's the truth Malcolm knew. The people who change the world are never the ones who wait for permission. They're the ones who demand what's right and refuse to accept anything less. Malcolm didn't ask Oxford for permission to speak his truth. He didn't soften his message to make them comfortable. He stood at that dispatch box and said what needed to be said. And 700 people, most of whom came to judge him, left respecting him. That's the power of conviction, of clarity, of refusing to be moderate in the face of injustice. Malcolm X proved that at Oxford in 1964. And 60 years later, the lesson still stands. Be extreme about the right things, and never apologize for it.